As the Nationals drop 2 of 3 games down at Fenway Park, one thing is more clear than ever, and that is C.J. Abrams needs to be your full-time leadoff hitter.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as the show page at LO_Nationals. For all your latest Nationals news and notes, make sure to check us out over on Twitter. And if you'd like to make us your first listen every single day, make sure to check us out over on YouTube. Just search Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, as we said, including over on YouTube, hit that subscriber button for me there. Later on in today's show, we'll be talking about this is a got-to-have-it series against the Chicago White Sox. We'll discuss that and why I think that and why I truly do believe the Nationals need to win 2 of these 3 games. They sit 1 game below 500 right now. They got to win this series. I'll explain that after the Nats stock report, which will be in the second segment of today's show. And if you're an everydayer, you know what this is. It is your latest individual performances. Who's been hot, who's been not, whose stock is up, and whose stock is down. We'll discuss that a little bit later on in today's show, as a couple of the Nationals will be making an appearance on that big old stock report. But of course, let's talk about the weekend. The Washington Nationals, they dropped 2 of 3 games at Fenway. They won Friday. I was kind of getting some good vibes. And then all of a sudden, you lose the next 2 games. So the Nationals sit 1 game below 500. But ultimately, one thing became clear to me this weekend. C.J. Abrams needs to be the Nationals' leadoff hitter. Ever since really the last week and a half, Davey Martinez has kind of mixed around the lineup a little bit and has had put Jacob Young up the leadoff spot. As of right now, you look at it from just kind of at the top of the water, whichever way you want to look at it. Jacob Young being the leadoff hitter does make sense. It does. Jacob Young has been a hot hitter. He's been playing very well. And in fact, he's probably a little bit better on the base path up to this point. But what is more important to you right now? The way that Jacob Young develops? Or is it the way that C.J. Abrams develops? Because right now, you can talk about one thing. One thing has become very clear to me is that C.J. Abrams is more comfortable at the leadoff spot. If you remember midway through last year, when C.J. Abrams first got bumped up from the bottom of the order all the way into the leadoff spot, that is when he took off. That is when you all saw the big jump from C.J. Abrams, as we talked about all offseason long, as to why the Nationals should extend him. C.J. Abrams took that jump once he got up to the leadoff spot. I cannot say this enough. It is a comfort thing, I believe, when it comes to C.J. Abrams and where he bats in the lineup. I think C.J. Abrams, maybe I could be wrong here, but the numbers don't lie. He just feels more comfortable up the leadoff spot. As he got in there in Sunday's game, he added a few extra hits. Because as he has batted in second so far this season, and again, it's only been 8 games batting in the second slot, but his numbers aren't that good. And that is when he has really fallen off with his production so far. So batting second, he has a 200 batting average with a 558 OPS. When he's batting leadoff, he has a 301 batting average with a 949 OPS. And also digging a little deeper into that, over 113 at-bats batting leadoff. He's got 7 home runs and 18 RBIs. And 35 at-bats batting at second. He's got no home runs and 2 RBIs. The reason why that Davey Martinez put him up at the second spot is because the way that he's been driving the baseball, the way that he's been slugging, leading the team in slug, being one of the better slugging hitters in all of baseball the first month of the season. The reason why they put him up there was in order to get more RBI opportunities for him. But I don't think that should be the case right now. Because again, we should have tunnel vision towards the future. This time next year, when you have Dylan Cruz, Brady House, and all the other top prospects, James Wood, who should be up here probably within the next few days. Not really, but he should be. When you have all those guys in the lineup, C.J. Abrams will not be your second hitter. It'll be James Wood or Dylan Cruz. One of those guys. Those will be the guys to hit those RBI hits and all the different big hits throughout a ball game. But C.J. Abrams should be your leadoff hitter, and that is the way that this structure within the national system right now, that is the way that things are lining up, in my opinion. So if you don't have C.J. Abrams, and if you don't have him as a leadoff hitter right now, in my opinion, I think that throws some things off. And also to kind of get into it a little bit more, I'm such a believer in the fact that you should not fix something that isn't broken. C.J. Abrams at the leadoff spot was never broken. In fact, that was the fix for what was broken prior to him. That's when the Nationals started to take off last year in the second half of the season when you put him at the leadoff spot. When you got guys like Lane Thomas behind him to drive him in. When Lane Thomas returns, you're going to have him batting second, and that should be your, hopefully, Lane Thomas kind of breaks out again because this season it's been a struggle for him. But overall, C.J. Abrams should not be in the second hole. And it's not the end of the world. I don't think that this is necessarily the main reason why C.J. Abrams has kind of been struggling, but you put him back in the leadoff spot yesterday, he has a couple of base hits. He's getting on base again. He's wreaking havoc on the pace path. And a lot of people out there may want to say, well, let's talk about Victor Robles and all the mistakes that he's made. Listen, Victor Robles is out of the picture at this point. He's long gone. Jacob Young is going to be your center fielder. Jacob Young will be the guy moving forward. Because also, let me add this. As we talked about C.J. Abrams' first segment, let's also talk about Jacob Young. Because Jacob Young, while he has been batting leadoff, while the Nationals have been winning games, I guess you could say, Jacob Young was voted a top 10 center fielder in all of baseball according to Bleacher Report in their latest power rankings. Jacob Young has been incredible. Victor Robles is out of the picture at this point. Yes, has he costed the Nationals games in the past? Has he had all these stupid mistakes that Davey Martinez has pleaded for him not to make over and over and over again? Of course he has. But at the end of the day, Victor Robles is gone. It's no longer a worry anymore. Yes, we understand he did cost the Nationals a game yesterday. He cost them a lot of opportunities on the base path. All the different things. We've read this book before. You've read this book before. All of us have. We know what the ending is. It's going to end up in Victor Robles being a fourth outfielder. Maybe getting traded for a baseball at the deadline. That's what it will come down to. He's not going to be a part of this future. And as of right now, Jacob Young needed a day off. It was his first day off and basically since he's been up from AAA. So as the Nationals kind of get acclimated to winning baseball and playing a little bit more competitive baseball overall, you're going to see some hiccups. That's part of the growing pains. Victor Robles is no longer part of those growing pains. We've seen it with him. He's had his opportunity. That opportunity is gone now at this point. And it's unfortunate because, again, this was someone who was a top 5 prospect in all of baseball, but still, it's out the window for me. He's long gone. The exit for him to get off to arrive at Nationals Park and be your franchise center fielder, that exit was about 30 miles ago, my friend. It's no longer here. So these mistakes that continue to pile up for Victor Robles, yes, they are frustrating. Yes, I do want to see the Nationals win. But also, I care a little bit more about guys like C.J. Abrams at the top of the leadoff spot where he should be getting all the reps at. Because that is where his future is going to align alongside the Washington Nationals. That is where the future is for this Nats team. That is where he has had the most success. I care way more about C.J. Abrams, what he did in the leadoff spot compared to what he has done in the second spot. And again, speaking of philosophies here with baseball, it does make sense as to why David Martinez tried to put him there. I understand it. You have Jacob Young, who is, a very good base runner alongside C.J. Abrams, but maybe even a little bit better than Abrams on the base path. But still, Abrams should be your leadoff hitter for the foreseeable future, and you should never mess with that unless he struggles. Again, I want to bring up this point. You do not fix something that is not broken. Now, let me ask you this. Was C.J. Abrams broken at the leadoff spot? I don't necessarily think so. The numbers don't lie. Batting 300 at the leadoff spot with a 949 OPS, through 8 games batting second, batting 200 with a 558 OPS. You tell me which one's better. I'll take batting leadoff any day of the week. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, you can check us out over on YouTube. Just search Locked On Nationals there. And while you're at it, make sure to check us out over wherever you get your podcast. Now, we got to get into a national stock report, as if you're an everydayer out there, you know what this is. Who's been hot, who's been not, and whose stock is up, whose stock is down. If you're not, This is where you get your latest individual performances, the best and the worst of the last week or so. We'll discuss that. Who's been into it, who's been good, who's been not, after we tell you guys about some of our very good friends over at Policygenius. And guys, when we talk about Policygenius, you need to know one thing here is that Policygenius is the country's leading online insurance marketplace. And of course, with Policygenius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. And some options offer same-day approval and avoid unnecessary medical exams. Listen, life insurance is very critical for every human out there, especially if you have a family. So if you use Policygenius, I need to know what is the best option. I can tell you this right now. Policygenius helps you compare your options from top companies, and their team of licensed experts is on hand to help you talk through it. And I can vouch for that myself, as you can talk to a team of award-winning agents who will walk you through the process of step by step. And of course, just call their hotline or whatever. Get in touch with Policygenius, and that is where they'll help you. And of course, Policygenius is they give you unbiased advice from a licensed expert support team, and that is one of the better offers in the book. So check life insurance off your to-do list in no time with Policygenius. Head to policygenius.com/lockedonmlb or click the link in the description to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com/lockedonmlb. Now we get into it as we have a national stock report. And again, this is where you'll get a stock up if you've been good, stock down if you've been bad. So we got to start off talking about stock up for Eddie Rosario. I saw the comments last week. People being like, why haven't you given a stock down for Eddie Rosario? He's been awful. Of course, he was terrible. He had a batting average below 100. His OPS was a career low. He was doing terribly for this Nationals team. Since then, though, he read the Locked On Nationals YouTube comment page. He's turned it around. He has 3 home runs in his last 5 games, and in May in total, this is his slash line. Get a load of this. He is batting .417, a .533 on-base percentage, a .958 slug, and a .1492 OPS. He's got 4 home runs in the month of May and 7 RBIs all the way through May 12th. Eddie Rosario, again, the numbers, if you still look at them, they're not good, but they're a lot better than what they once were. Eddie Rosario has always struggled in the month of April. It's always been his thing. But since May has come on, Eddie Rosario looks like a 2021 version of Eddie Rosario, the NLCS MVP, Eddie Rosario. The crowd in Atlanta, when they're all chanting, Eddie, Eddie, he was there, Howie Kendrick. Eddie Rosario has been phenomenal in the month of May. You have to keep this guy in the lineup just from the way that he's been hitting big home runs over the weekend against the Red Sox. Again, 3 home runs in his last 5 games. Eddie Rosario has turned it on for this team. I'm not saying Eddie Rosario is going to be a big trade acquisition at the deadline, but the whole goal of Eddie Rosario is to have something like that. If you can trade Eddie Rosario at the deadline for something, that is a win-win situation for Eddie Rosario, going to a winning team, and a win for this organization, getting another prospect through the window. Hopefully it's a pitcher, but still, we're looking way too ahead. It is May 13th right now. But Eddie Rosario, he has been damn good. Stock down for Keyar Ruiz. I'm not saying I'm done with Keyar Ruiz. I still believe in the prospect that he is. He's no longer a prospect, obviously. The time is now. The time is now for Keyar Ruiz to break out. Whether it's defense or offense, he's done neither. Keyar Ruiz so far, besides the bad defense, I always get just so flustered with this conversation. People are just saying, well, if Keyar Ruiz doesn't work out defensively, put him over at first base. In what world can Keyar Ruiz play consistently at first base? Forget the defense. Let's talk about the offensive production with him. Because so far in the month of May, he's batting 147 with a 147 OBP and a 147 slug and a 294 OPS. He's only got 5 hits, all of them being singles, 0 extra base hits, and again, he's playing really poor defense. At some point in time, Keyar Ruiz is going to have to click. And again, the conversation of him and Riley Adams, it is a real thing. I'm not saying the Nationals are discussing this, but you would have to imagine that Keyar Ruiz might lose his job this season. And it's kind of a bad look considering you just gave him a pretty hefty extension, which is a very team-friendly deal, by the way. It's not going to hinder the Nationals for years to come like a Patrick Corbin and a Steven Strasburg will. But still, Keyar Ruiz, it has not been good for him. And he's coming off after having the flu. He lost like 20 pounds, I believe, which is insane. So obviously he's still recovering, still trying to get right. But at this point, the conversation between him and Riley Adams, it is a real thing. The Nationals are going to have to sit down with him at some point. They're going to have to sit down with the pitching staff because there is a real hole between those two offensively and defensively. And Riley Adams is not the best defensive catcher in baseball. He's not even close to it, in fact. He's not great defensively either. But he's better than Keyar. And at the plate at this point, he's a whole lot better than Keyar Ruiz. So at some point, it's going to have to click for him because he's always been a very inconsistent player. But this year, he's been consistent, but he has not been consistent in a good way. It's been consistently bad. That is a conversation that this Nationals team will have to have because at this point, Keyar Ruiz is not on my good list. I am not a fan of what I've seen so far. I think the Nationals probably have to have a little bit of a bigger discussion for the big picture of this team and what they're going to do at that catching position. Stock up for one of the late signings of the offseason, one of the late signings really of the last few months, Jacob Barnes. Through his first 9 innings pitched as a Washington National, only 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, 8 hits, and a 1.91 fielding independent pitching. Jacob Barnes has been a very pleasant surprise for this Nationals team and a pretty strong bullpen in my opinion. This Nats pen is looking really deep. You have guys like Dylan Floro who have been common stock ups on this Monday stock report. You have guys like Hunter Harvey, Kyle Finnegan, 2 of the better relief pitchers in all of baseball this season. But Jacob Barnes has been a very pleasant surprise, a veteran who has hopped around throughout his career and who's now kind of redeeming himself in a very good Nationals bullpen. So seeing Jacob Barnes come in, shut the door through his first 9 innings pitch, and again, let's reiterate those stats, only 1 walk through 9 innings pitched, 7 strikeouts and 8 hits, and a 1.91 fielding independent pitching. He's been very good for this Nationals team, a very pleasant surprise. You know who has not been a pleasant surprise? Stock down, Joey Maness. He's kind of the one, I'm the teacher of this classroom, let's say that. He's the troublemaker for me. I cannot see Joey Maness in this lineup anymore. Some way, somehow, you got to get Joey Maness out of this lineup. He hit a home run this weekend against Boston, first of all season, but still, 148, a 250 on-base percentage, a 296 slug, 546 OPS in his last 7 games. And again, those are numbers with his home run included there. First home run of the season, by the way. Your designated hitter, your first baseman. Joey Maness should not be in this lineup anymore. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of not seeing any more power from him. When you have a designated hitter spot, you got to figure out a way to get power in the lineup. Call up Juan Yepez. Call up someone in order to make a difference. Stone Garrett when he's ready. He's been struggling down to the minors, but still, it has to be a little bit better than what Joey Maness has been doing, right? At this point, I just cannot tolerate if you're a designated hitter or a first baseman and you don't have any power, I can't have you in the power spot. That's what Joey Maness is supposed to do. He just has not delivered, and it's been consistently not delivering for quite some time now. I'm tired of it. And again, I'm sorry to pick on Joey Maness. It was a great story back in 2022. Last year was at best, and this year has not been good whatsoever. So stock down for Joey Maness. And now that brings us to our last stock up for starting pitcher, Jake Irvin. Jake Irvin has been one of the better pitchers, in my opinion, in this National starting rotation this year. He got roughed around a few starts ago, but since then, over his last 3 starts, he has 18 innings pitched, 13 hits, only 1 walk. Think of that for a second. 1 walk over his last 18 innings pitched. Jake Irvin last year had some control issues, but this year, and really in particular over his last few starts, he has been pounding the strike zone. Again, only 1 walk in his last 3 starts and 18 innings pitched in total. Jake Irvin has been such a pleasant surprise for this organization. If you've kind of gone back and forth about how this organization has kind of been lackluster in the way that they develop pitching and not really just doing the best things, because they've had a lot of first-round picks like Eric Fetty that you'll be seeing this weekend against the White Sox. Jake Irvin has been a very pleasant surprise for this team. And of course, you want to see more from it because he has been damn good for the Washington Nationals. So it's nice to see Jake Irvin get back on it. But of course, the Nationals in the years past, they have had their fair share of struggles when it comes to developing pitching. So we'll discuss that because the Nationals, Eric Fetty, he'll be on the bump tomorrow night, a former first-round pick for this organization. We'll have this series for you and, of course, preview it right after we tell you guys about some of our very good friends over at PrizePicks. And guys, when we talk about PrizePicks, I want you to know that all things come with good things. The spring training is over, and of course, baseball season is officially underway, so don't miss your chance to add your favorite players from the diamond in your PrizePick entries, whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, first inning runs. Take your pick of more or less and add them to your PrizePicks entry today. You can get on the playoff action, win up to 100 times your money on PrizePicks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball's postseason. And of course, the basketball postseason is already here, so maybe, just maybe, you want to test your skills on PrizePicks for basketball and the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. So if you have the skills, you can turn $10 into $100 with just a few taps, and PrizePicks makes it so much more fun to watch a baseball game or a basketball game, and of course, play. I've won some money, I'm not going to lie, over on playoff basketball, so you should do this as well. So download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today. Use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, that is code LOCKEDONMLB. Now we get back into it as the Nationals take on the Chicago White Sox, in which is a got-to-have-it series for this organization. We've talked about it just last week. This National schedule in May is a very tough one. And this is by far and away the easiest one that you will get over the next month. You have the Chicago White Sox in Chicago. And of course, we'll have Eric Fetty's preview tomorrow's show, as he has been lights out for this White Sox team so far after winning the MVP last year in the KBO. So Eric Fetty, kudos to you. Former first-round pick for this organization. We'll have that on tomorrow's show, but of course, talk about it a little bit here. But you got to have this series. Washington Nationals. All jokes aside, 3 games against this White Sox team today, tomorrow, and Wednesday. You got to win this because after this, you have 3 games against the Phillies, you have 3 games against the Twins, and 3 games against the Mariners, and then followed up 4 games in Atlanta. All of those teams are postseason teams. All of these teams are very good, very talented, very good pitching staffs. And the Nationals, with the kind of lackluster offense as of recent, you're going to have to pound the Chicago White Sox, hopefully take 2 of 3, if not all 3 of these games, if you want to stay afloat in the postseason race. It may be a little bit early to say this is a must-win series, but if you can kind of reach down and see the magic 8 ball, you got to win these games because wins are going to be very tough to come by. You go to Philly after this Chicago White Sox series. Philly has been one of the best teams in all of baseball. You come back home, play against the Minnesota Twins, one of the better teams in all of baseball again. And then you have the Mariners at home, and then you go down to Atlanta for 4 games. This is not going to be a fun little stretch here for this Nationals team after this White Sox series. That is why you're going to have to take advantage of it now. And of course, on today's Locked On Nationals, you have Trevor Williams, who's been the ace of this staff, going up against the Chicago White Sox, Chris Flexen, who has not all been too great. And then tomorrow, you have Eric Fetty, former Washington Nationals first-round pick that we'll be discussing on tomorrow's show. And then you have one of the other aces for this team, Mitchell Parker. And then on Wednesday, day game, baseball in Chicago. Feels pretty damn good to say that. Don't you love that? It's not at Wrigley Field, but still, you have Patrick Corbin on the bump. So these next 2 games, you got to win them, Nationals. Thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. And of course, check us out over on YouTube. Just search Locked On Nationals there. That is where you'll find your daily coverage of the Washington Nationals. As I caught myself a little bit of a cough there, a little bit of a tough day when it comes to allergies. So I'll catch you guys on the flip side. And of course, enjoy the Nationals game tonight. I will catch you on the flip side of tomorrow's show. Have a good one. Go Nats.